first question I have is why are your states and districts kind of uniquely well, like why is the regulatory approach uniquely well suited to your states and districts? Why is the stormwater stuff working so well here? And what have been the benefits you guys have seen out of that?
You're up, Mark.
All right. Well, I'll start. Our district saw a real opportunity to this back in the early 90s. We developed this law because our state was expanding rapidly, like most places were in the Northeast in the 90s. And land conversion was going on at a pretty rapid clip. You know, the federal government had gotten into it with NPDS, and we still weren't happy with some of the things that we were seeing in terms of water quality, issues with nutrients in our bodies of water as well as bacteria on our beaches. And it presented an opportunity to the districts to really step up and show what they were capable of doing on a voluntary, cooperative basis in a regulatory framework, which was kind of new territory for us. And it was widely recognized that we were the technical experts when it came to erosion sediment control and stormwater management. There was no question about it. That's where the knowledge base existed. It had a good history with NRCS and even our state agency. So as our customer base was changing, as Matt talked about, as we were having more urban customers and less rural customers, we needed to change ourselves. And we seized this opportunity to begin that change. We didn't walk away from our traditional customers, but we did embrace our new customers. And up to the point where we had a badge and a gun. That's the part we said we're not interested in. But yes, it did present a tremendous opportunity for us. Yeah.
A regulatory framework exists everywhere. We may not wish to publicly acknowledge it, but if you think of everything that we do as a soil conservation district, there is some regulatory framework behind it driving what we do. And we may not be the enforcers of that regulatory framework, but we sure are working with all of our cooperators within the expectations of that framework. And I don't think that that's something that's been recently imposed upon us. I think anywhere you got government, you got a regulatory framework, whether it's the town, whether it's the county, or whether it's state agencies. And I ain't even gonna talk about the federal, okay? But Maryland and Delaware and New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Virginia are all unique brothers in the world's heaviest regulatory framework called the Chesapeake Bay, and the role of EPA in dealing with Chesapeake Bay as a pilot project, the way I like to call it. And I tell my friends in Missouri, wait till the EPA gets out to your place. You know, and we're doing our damnedest to move them on, okay? And the only way you can do that, I think, is to do what they want you to do and quit whining and complaining about it. But I think that there is a lot of progress that soil conservation districts can make in helping people comply with the regulatory framework. We in Prince George's have been very, very successful because of the regulatory frameworks of our Department of the Environment, which is driven to a great extent by the EPA telling them exactly what it is they want to do. And let me just give you a quick example. EPA required the Maryland Department of the Environment to revise their erosion and sediment control and water quality manuals. They were old, and there was lots of stuff out of rhythm with reality. Today, when you looked at it, and EPA required the Department of the Environment to do all of this revision, write out a complete new requirements manual that would sit on every engineer's desk. Maryland Department had absolutely nobody that was capable of doing that on staff, so they punted, and they asked all 23 counties in Maryland, required all 23 counties in Maryland to write a new manual. Well, Prince George's County didn't have anybody on staff that could do that, so what the devil do we do? Our Soil Conservation District and my district manager, Steve Darcy, who I go nowhere without, okay, is here. So our Soil Conservation District became a subcontractor to the county to write the manual. Now, we have the capability of doing it because we've got enough people on staff. We have an engineer, full-time licensed engineer on staff directing our urban program. We prepared a completely new set of manuals and got them approved by the Department of the Environment for our local Prince George's County. Lo and behold, here comes Allegheny County. Could we have a copy of that, please? And we wound up as our Soil Conservation District writing the manual that I think 9 or 10 counties now are using. But it was an opportunity that we had within a heavyweight regulatory framework to get more customers, deliver more service, and support ourselves better.
I just to pick on this, I will say that New Jersey, since it probably came into the union, I think it was the third state. I think Delaware obviously is the first, then came Pennsylvania. They've been writing regulations in New Jersey probably since 1790 in some capacity.
1789.
1789. Seems that long ago, right?
Like a month ago.
Yeah. But my thing that I'm worried about, and I heard it yesterday, and it was mentioned about what NRCS is going through and what's on the table from the current administration for a 20% rollback and what that could potentially mean. And we have a good relationship, a very good relationship with NRCS. I had the privilege of being in Denver at the national meeting and meeting with a lot of the key leaders there. And I would urge anybody who's in this room, if you've never been, you should go or send someone at some point during your time as a supervisor. Regulation is a necessity. It just cannot become a burden. There's a difference. And I mentioned this yesterday, and I'll say this again. You have to have clarity in regulation, but there must be consistency in its application. Just like what you see in a baseball game, the managers won't complain about necessarily that particular umpire, but they want to know that the call in the top of the second inning is the same as the top of the sixth or the bottom of the eighth. There's got to be a consistency to the applications of how the rules are enforced. The clarity allows those people to make investment decisions that are a necessity to having job creation. So there's a balancing act that goes on in this entire fabric between the regulatory role, the enforcement role, and the growth role. But we need to have partners, whether it's NRCS, EPA, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, which is equivalent to what Maryland has with Department of Environment and other state agencies of that type. So what you want to create is a fabric that there's enough protection but not strangulation of what goes on. And there can't be silly rules that basically prohibit people from doing some necessity things to improve their land or to have somehow an overreach of government. Now, I've come through 31 years. Originally when I came on, I was in my late 20s, and I was one of those kind of, hell-bent people. Hey, everybody in the business world is a crook. They're looking to steal, they're looking to build, they'll do this, they'll do that. And I'm not trying to say that, you give anybody a free pass, by any means. But regulation has to be sensible, it has to be completely defensible, and it has to be current to the needs of customers in 2017. What did not happen from 40 years ago, 30 years ago, has to be relevant to today. The standard of today and what we value today is how that has to be implemented. And we have partners that we're trying to help. But above all else, it's our responsibility, it's mine as a supervisor, to make sure that the customer is being served in an equitable and in a fair manner. And they're being charged fees and rates that certainly are defensible to the time and effort that it has taken to do the inspections that go with that particular process. It's a very difficult situation because there's no one way that fits all situations. All states, all districts have differences, have little nuances or subtleties that go on. But our partners that are involved with us are absolutely crucial in making sure that we can continue the progress that we're trying to make for each of our districts.
So, Matt, you and Cal both alluded to this so far, and I certainly kind of heard this yesterday in the section on the session on the Vermont policy environment here, but it seems like when we ask our districts to take on more of a regulatory role, there's some money that comes with that. And look out in the audience and I see a lot of people from Delaware. I always see a lot of people from Delaware.
They must be making money.
It seems like there might be some benefits here to these permitting and regulatory functions. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about kind of how that's impacted your district operations and the bottom line? Because I know that funding is something that I hear our folks struggling with a lot.
Well, I'll just say, in the issue of the time that our staff's involved, we're basically making almost all of our money from soil erosion permits that we basically are doing. We used to have an education outreach effort where we'd have somebody go to the schools and do an outreach capacity. We had somebody at the state level who's been doing that as well. We're not doing enough on the side of building up the messaging side because we're caught up in the day-to-day of how to do regulatory through 250. We have a law called Public Law 251, which deals with soil erosion permits that have to be pulled when certain thresholds are met, like 5,000 square feet are met, then you have to get a permit, and then eventually there's a soil erosion plan put forward. That plan has to be reviewed, approved, and then eventually inspected upon before a certificate of occupancy can be given. But the difficulty is that we need to take care of our primary business, which is serving the customer who's put in for that plan, because as someone said before, we are open for business and we serve all people, whoever they may be is our customer. And I know I have, and one of my fellow board members is here at today's meeting with me. We insist that people treat people with the respect that they're owed when they call our office, all right? But we will not put up with nonsense when people call the office and think this is going to be a free pass and they're just going to start screaming at people. We don't tolerate that either, from anybody, whoever it is. Respect is uniform to life, and you have to demonstrate that. So in regards to the time and effort that our staff has spent, I would love to see envisioning to do other things. I really would. But I know that we're going to have to build that echo chamber with other people to carry that forward. We don't have the time right now with the staff that we have to do the variety of things that probably we could be doing, because we have to meet the day-to-day responsibilities that the state of New Jersey has entrusted with us to do, and that is to take care of soil conservation. I hope we could do more, but I think that would be contingent upon both staffing and funding levels, of which right now are problematic.
So what I'm hearing from you, Matt, is that while there's certainly the fee-for-service work, the fulfilling these management plans has been a good thing in terms of keeping your staff funded, employed, being able to answer the phones, deliver customer service. You guys are still struggling to find the funding to do other stuff. That hasn't solved all your problems. It's just you are still looking to figure out how to provide some of the other services that we hope that our districts can deliver for constituents?
I mean, I would love to see more programs be done with the schools, because I believe that if you don't have a network capacity, building sort of like throwing a rock into a pond, you create ripples. We need to get young people to understand. I mean, most millennials today, I've seen some data that show millennials have a very high value for environmental sensitivity. They don't want land to be degraded as it's been done previously. So, we could do more, and we need to do more. But, some of the urban schools that I know I've gone to, whether it's in the city of Newark, Jersey City, Patterson, they're just trying to get their head above water on basics, day to day. Make sure they have enough chalk, make sure they have this or they have that, basic supplies. So if you say to them, let's add on one more thing to the curriculum, it's very hard to do. A lot of the suburban customers we have, they're much more attuned to certain things that they have, their daily life choices about what they eat, what they buy, where they go. Those things are at a higher level. But I think as a challenge, we as a district can't just say, hey, we're just going to do our regulatory function and not do anything else. I think that's not acceptable. I know I hear from my staff people all the time, well, we're just trying to get by. We got a lot of permits that come through our district all the time. But, the face of my district that I am privileged to serve as chairperson is not to just accept the bar of what we are, but what we aspire to be. Where we want to go and who we want to do things with. And, those are the things that I'm trying to do now by building relationships in all the conferences that I attend. And I think, our staff people, let me just say this, and I use a military metaphor, it's very easy for me to sit in the Pentagon and tell my manager who's in the field what he needs to do. He's just trying to get by the next 5 minutes of what's going on, because something hit the fan that day. And it's easy for me to pontificate back here, oh, we should be doing this, okay? So I have to be very sensitive to the fact of staff, requirements, what their morale is, make sure that they get the support that they need. This is all working in the same time. This is all real time. This is not like I sit in my little utopia world and then pontificate with 4 other board members and say, hey, we should be doing this. It's the old adage by Bill Covey's book, seek to understand before being understood. So you need to really put your mind in the feet of the people who are in the field, because that is the point where the customer meets the person doing the regulatory work. And every once in a while you need to stand back and get an evaluation about, to use Ed Koch's line, the former mayor of New York, how are we doing? Okay, and don't just drink your own Kool-Aid and believe you're doing so well. Because the customer, and I keep harping on this, but it is very true. We live in that world of service, and we've all been burned by it. But I can't over-push my staff, but I can't expect them to get too comfortable to think, oh, this is all we're going to do. We're a one-trick pony, and that's all we do all day. No, we need to do other things. And I hope that we can do that. And I'll be pushing from my side within a reasonability element that says, how do we do this? We being fair-minded to the many different players that are within that circle that I've got to deal with, as a person, as a board member. And also to my board colleagues. What do they hope to see get done? Because I have to work as a team player. It's not just my vision. It's a vision that's basically being shaped by other board members and how they feel and what do they see happening. That's important too.
I'll go from there. Our districts do have the ability to charge, and we do charge. But as some of them say, it's not monopoly money. And Matt was talking about this. These are real dollars. They belong to other people. And our boards have chosen to set fees at a very appropriate level to support the program, but not fund the entire district in its entirety and all the scopes of things that they do. I'll disagree with you, Matt. You said you can print money. We don't have printing presses in the basement. I tell people that every day. Our districts are pay-go. They start with a zero budget and work from there. So, yeah, we do charge. It does pay a lot of the bills. It provides some of the infrastructure. It doesn't pay for everything. It's not the panacea to pull your district out of the woods if you're there.
With respect to your setup question, I think that when you have a relationship with a person in the planning, they are a cooperator. When you have a relationship with a person, a client, a person who you're helping, and in the implementation field, they're cooperator. That's good stuff. When you work at trying to develop a relationship in the regulatory end of it, that's adversarial, or it certainly has the ability to become adversarial, which really will backwash and against those relationships that you've created in the planning and the implementation phase. Also, in the planning implementation phase, from a practical standpoint, you are delivering a service which you can charge a fair price for, and people are willing to pay it. You can make money to support your district. When you get to the end of the line where it's regulation, you can't really charge for criticizing somebody. And it's going to wind up, you know, the end result of regulation is do it, fine, legal action. And that's something that the district will not get into unless, in my opinion, you stupidly volunteer. And I don't recommend that, because there ain't no gold at the end of that yellow brick road when regulation and penalty and forcing people to do stuff is involved. And you're not going to charge for it. You're not going to make money for it. It's not going to be productive for you. And that's why Maryland has basically said, talk to the hand, when we have various state agencies that want us to do their work because they don't got enough people to do it themselves. And that's kind of where it comes from. And in our opinion, thank you, but no thank you. It's not a business we want to get into.
So, Cal, you just said, you know, there's a little bit of an adversarial relationship or potential for an adversarial relationship there. One thing I heard in the Vermont session yesterday was that they've been having some